Welcome to ISRA League's Grand Touring Championship, brought to you by the Z1 SimWheel LCD display and LCD display software. You can check out z1simwheel.com. You can download the software, purchase it, or buy the hardware, the LCD display hardware, and add it to the sim rig and get all those excellent dashboards on your rig. Well, welcome. This is Season 8. Race 6 at VIR. I'm Daniel Quaroni, and with me here are Anthony Muniz.
Hey, great to be back with you guys.
And Brian Carey.
Hello, everyone.
Well, let's see. So we are halfway done with the season, entering the second half of the season, and looking at the points, we've got Russell Cow leading in Daytona prototypes, but Mike Kelly is just 4 points behind. Timothy Stoll is being a pretty good challenge along. Then Carlos Passo's kind of floating there, is safely in fourth, as John Rasuto's Mike Taylor, Gilles Moret, Daniel Quaroni, and a couple others are vying for the fifth spot. Then Colin McLean in the Cadillacs has 81 points, with Todd Carver just 5 points back. Mark Payne and James Cullen, 1 point between them for third and fourth. And then a big gap to fifth, sixth, and seventh, all within 2 points. And so that means there's still a pretty good opportunity for shake-up here. And we'll bring up the track map in just a moment, and Brian can take us through a lap of VIR.
Alright, well, there we go. So we have the Virginia International Raceway here. Many different configurations. We're going to be running on the full course, which is 3.27 miles. Some of the things you want to look forward to here are, well, up and down, lots of green spaces and lots of chance to make mistakes. So there's very rarely a corner that does not give you trouble. Towards the end of the lap, Hog Pen is one of the more difficult corners on any racetrack, downhill, dipping to the right and then coming back uphill to finish the course. The S is on the back half, and then the roller coaster is another very interesting section. Whole track is extremely interesting, and looking forward to a very difficult race for everyone.
Yes, indeed. And we'll check out the qualifying here. We've got Russell Cow on pole with a 140.091, almost flat. Mike Kelly just about half second behind him. And then Timothy Stoll just a little bit behind him. Then Brian Carey joining him on the second row. Third row is Carlos Passos, Chuck Chambliss, then John Middleton, Brent Biles, and then John Rasutos and Marty Jeffries rounding out the top 10.
And for the Cadillacs, Alberto Prado took the pole with 147.7. James Cullen was just behind by 2/10. Ricardo Machuca and Mauro Beneca were on the second row, with Colin McLean and Todd Carver on the third row. Daniel Gralty and Brian Huff will be on the fourth, with Lauren Bateman and John Kuzland running out the fifth row and the top 10.
Alright, we see the Daytona prototype sort of jostling there through some turns, even on the pace lap. That's a particularly tight corner there that they were trying to work their way through.
It's a very, very narrow track, as you can see here. Not a lot of space for these Daytona prototypes to even go too wide on the pace lap. So a lot of tracks you'll see, even some that appear to be narrow, like Most Sport, for instance, is a very narrow track. We're just recently there. But VIR, because of the length of the course and just the difficulty of all the turns, Most Sport has a couple difficult tracks, whereas VIR, I'd say 70% of the corners require a fair amount of care. Because any small mistakes can cost you very, very dearly.
Yeah, I have to say, after driving on Lime Rock, that was one of the things I really noticed, was that it is far more narrow in real life than it appears to be in the simulator. You can go too wide, but man, it feels uncomfortable, and I just imagine racing at speed on there and going too wide, trying to make a pass. And yeah, I'd say it takes quite a bit of guts to do that.
Now, what I've been told here, too, is people that have raced this track in real life, that the grass isn't nearly as slippery, we'll say, as it is in the simulator here. However, you'll find in the simulator there's some corners, Hog Pen in particular, and sometimes in the S's around the back of the track there, that if you put a wheel off and if you get off the track, that you're going at a very, very high rate of speed to a wall that's seemingly not very close to the track, but you will reach it in a hurry if you put more than a couple wheels off.
Yeah, I can't say speak to exact speed, but I know I've seen a video on YouTube. I believe it was on board with an Audi R8. This was just on a track day, and a guy, he went off in the S's and hit a wall backwards, and yeah, he hit it at a pretty good rate.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to take an Audi R8 around here, but for now, just what we can do is take a Daytona prototype simulator car in the iRacing, and got a few more corners left before we get the green flag as the field starts to bunch up, getting ready to go.
And they're accelerating down towards the start, and we've got green flag, and there the clock is ticking.
As we see the Daytona prototypes barreling down towards the first corner here, very, very difficult to get through cleanly, which it looks like most people have, but these first few laps...
What is going on in the pits, however? Wow.
Yeah, there's seems to be a few people off as Sean Cuthbertson has gone off the track there, so not everyone getting through as cleanly as we'd hoped. However, what I was just saying here is it's going to be a long race here, and more places drivers really take to heart the fact that you're never going to win this race in the first few laps. It's a race of survival, and even in the second half or even the last quarter of the race before things really start to get going.
Wow, Daniel Burness making quite the outside dive there. I don't think it was anything intentional, but he was just out braking or caught off guard there, and was fortunate to keep it both on the track and off of the car ahead of him.
It's one of those things you'll find here in particular. It's a case every track, but here in particular you'll notice that sometimes you have to sacrifice your speed with stability of the car, because in order for the car to be stable through some of these corners, you really have to maintain an even throttle, which for those of you just joining us and not familiar with the racing, an even throttle means you're neither accelerating nor decelerating, trying to keep the weight on both ends of the car, the front and the back of the car, to give it the most grip. And as I said, Carlos Passos, whoa, big moment here. He is off, spun in the middle of the track, and he has collected Chuck Chambliss. That is, we'll see if they're able to get back to the pits here, but I think that's going to damage both their cars.
Yeah, it looks like Chuck Chambliss probably got the worst of that, colliding right with his nose into the side of Passos. Although he decides to stay out, he's still on the track. Can't quite catch if Passos decided to pull in or not. But Chuck Chambliss will probably be suffering from some aero damage at least. Looks like Carlos Passos decides to stay out. And I can't really see anything visual on Passos' car, but he goes wide going into turn 1. Keeps it off the wall though, which is good. Could be a result of some of the damage that he has. But you see a bit of visual damage on the front. iRacing doesn't have the best visual model for damage, so that's not always the best indication. As we jump on board with Todd Carver running 5th in the Cadillacs currently.
Yeah, we had Carlos there going down towards roller coaster, towards the back end of the lap, getting way deep on the brakes, almost coming to the back of Kerry. Then after the collision with Chambliss there, coming down to the first corner, almost coming to the back of it. I didn't catch who that was there, but it's 2 long straightaways, and I mean, hopefully Carlos can keep it going here, but he seems to be struggling in the first lap.
Go on board with Eduardo Prado, who has lost first position to James Cullen. Cullen able to take first position. Someone drifting coming out of the Oak Tree corner. Chuck Chambliss could be a result of some of the damage with his contact between himself and Carlos Passos. He'll lose a few spots, and another one to Jerry Morsdorf as they head down the back straight.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one for Chuck. Chuck trying to get some good finishes in here. He's got really, really good pace, but unfortunately sometimes gets caught out in the early laps here. And it looks like John Middleton's car is having a little bit of a little bent in the middle there.
Yeah, now it's a Morgan.
Yeah, it just looks like he wrapped that thing around possibly the Oak Tree. It looks like he hit something pretty solid there. And now Carlos Passos coming up on Matthew Voigt there in the nuclear-powered number 25.
Passos really getting onto the back end of Matthew Voigt, and Matthew Voigt holding his ground, defending on the inside line as they head down to turn 1, and good driving by Voigt to maintain his position. Go on board with Daniel Verness, Verness, as he battles his way down the front straight, trying to get by Stephen Clark. And Daniels climbs his way up quite a bit since the start of the race. He qualified down in 17th. So he's already moved his way up into 13th, up into 12th now after he got by Stephen Clark.
Yeah, Daniel's perennially qualifying up and running towards the front of the field there, so look for him to start making up places. Back to what I was talking about earlier before the action started happening is with even throttle there, basically what will happen is if you're neither braking nor accelerating, you're going to find that you'll keep the car straight, but then you have the chance of running into the back of someone, whereas if you get on the brakes to slow down, you might lose the balance of the car and you might spin out or plow straight ahead. So I remember what I said about everyone, paying, cautious and trying to get through the first few laps here. I'm just watching Carlos, and it does not look like that seems to be his mindset. He is all over the back of Matthew Boyd right now. And just
I think that's just... go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, just considering the incidents he's had so far, it might be a better idea to back off a little bit and try again later, but we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, I was just going to point out something similar to that. Oh, it looks like there's issue between, that looks like Marty Jeffries. Oh man, a car's all over. And that was started between John Middleton and, was that Marty Jeffries, I think, possibly?
Yeah, Chuck Chambliss looks like he had to take avoiding action as well.
Yeah, I think the cars that actually had to go off the circuit to avoid, luckily, able to maintain grip on the grass. And that was a nice pass there on Lauren Bateman.
Yeah, Lauren Bateman got
James
way
Cullen
wide.
went a little bit wide, and I thought it was going to go off track, actually, there. So it's good that he kept it on, but did lose the spot. Oh, maybe not.
I'm sorry. I'm looking
at the wrong number. That was Lauren Bateman. I see, gotcha, sorry. I was looking at the wrong car number.
And Lauren Bateman moving up another position. He's up into 11th now with just about Cadillacs are on lap 3, I believe now, 3 or 4, and he's moved up from 17th. So he definitely has the race pace. Had some issues in qualifying, but we'll take a look at the battle between Ryan Huff and Lauren Bateman. This is for about 8th place in the class, and we've got James Mines and Daniel Verness just behind these, and Ryan Huff being let by there, I think.
Maybe Lauren got a corner-cutting flight warning and had to slow down because it seemed like he had slowed down very, very suddenly in a place where you normally not expect him to.
And watching Carlos Passos now, he did manage to get his way past Matthew Voigt. He's up back into 11th and aggressively looking to get by Tim McLeish. You can see Chuck Chambliss just in front of McLeish. And I think, Brian, you probably, I think you pointed out he's maybe being a little bit too aggressive for this stage of the race at this circuit. And I think he's fallen down because of an incident, and I think because he knows that he has a faster race pace than these guys, that he wants to clear them as fast as possible to get back up to where he thinks he should be, and that I'm guessing that's the cause for the aggression. But right now it seems to be good as he runs wide.
Well, yeah, he ran way wide there, so no, it's one of those. I understand the mindset sometimes of you go in there and you fall back and you get frustrated, you made a few mistakes, and it kind of leads to more mistakes. I've definitely been there before, but this is not the track to be doing that. Now the Johns here, we got Rizzutos and Middleton. It's nice to see John Rizzutos up there in the 01 car just ahead of John Middleton, because John Rizzutos in the 01 are the director's software, the iRacing software in particular, has trouble cutting to his position there, so it's good to see him in camera based on John Middleton's car here. So John Rizzuto's holding on well. He is currently in 6th position. I give a lot of good shout-outs to my fellow Canadian drivers out there. So John Rizzuto's one of those who, actually quite of the many who have hail from north of the border here.
And John Middleton trying to fight his way back up through the field, as he had a 90-degree spin through those last couple of corners right there that he just went through. He's going to have a run going down the front straight. Going to be on the inside of John Rizzuto's heading into turn 1. As long as he doesn't make a mistake, he should have this pass.
Yeah, this is turn 1's really, really difficult corner because it seems to just go on forever, and you can never get the car turned in. You obviously can, but it just feels like it takes forever. And Jerry Morsdorf is off. Gonna keep it off the tires. It looks like it. I heard some crunching. I don't know what that was. Maybe that was just him.
No, that looked like Was that Chuck Chambliss had an incident?
Yeah, well, incident. He got contacted by someone. I heard a crunch there. So, by the way, while I'm thinking that I am second, we'd spoken about that a few races ago. Basically, what that is if you go to imsecond.com, I believe, or .org, try a couple of them. It's basically an organization that helps. I'm sure it helps. I didn't get a chance to go through the whole website, but dealing with adopted children and families with adopted children, the importance of being able to do that and being a positive influence on another child's life there. So if you go to imsecond.org, I believe, they will speak very much more eloquently than I just did there. So, and there's Carlos Passos, very surprisingly off the track here.
Yeah, and that is at the Oak Tree corner, and looks like he has some bent suspension. Looks like his car is crabbing just a little bit as he heads down the back straight. And I think as Brian was going over the sponsorship on Chuck Chambliss' car, we saw a pass for the lead in the Daytona prototype. Timothy Stoll now the leader, with Russell Cow about a half second behind.
Yeah, just noticing that too. That's pretty impressive there. Timothy Stoll qualifying about 0.8 of a second behind Russell Cow, but I'm not sure if Russell had a problem, but race pace has put him up ahead into first place. So see how long he's able to hold that. Mike Kelly is right on their tail as well, so big three-way battle for the lead as someone that looks like Ryan Huff going on the inside there of Todd Carver.
It was actually newcomer Eduardo Benica.
Oh, Benica, right, sorry.
Hopefully that's how you say your last name. I apologize if it isn't. But here's Carlos Passos now pulling into the pits. There's some... I said earlier, iRacing isn't great at showing visual damage, but when it looks that bad, you know the damage on the car must be pretty bad, and it's going to try and get some of that repaired, it looks like. Here's Ryan Huff running in 8th place.
41.
Right,
there we go. See, we're off commentating for and there. Oh, geez, Ryan is off the track. This is one of those corners where it's so hard to get back on. Good job by Ryan to get the tarmac back there, because the grass falls away and you can lose a lot of time by going off there. So good job for Ryan. I'm just saying we've been away for a few weeks from commentating, so I forgot what Ryan's number was already. Only done about 20 races with him.
Go on board with Chuck Chambliss. He's in 11th, still deciding to stay out despite some of the damage. He gets by Sean Cuthbertson there. That moves him up into 10th place as they head into the Oak Tree corner. That corner catching quite a few people out. We've just seen, I think, 3 incidents, or somewhat incidents. I know Todd Carver got caught out. He managed to save it but lost the position. So one of the many tricky corners here at VIR.
Yeah, Oak Tree is a very, very difficult corner because the apex you have to hit just perfectly, but also you're braking and turning at the same time. So it's one of those ones, if you snatch a brake just when you don't expect it, that'll be just enough to be off onto the grass, and there's tires not too far from the edge of that corner, so you got to be really, really careful there, and it's very difficult to get right. You do gingerly to make sure you get through the corner. You can lose a lot of time as well. I'll be honest, driving around this course is it's just like playing Russian roulette a lot of the times too. I mean, most of the time you pull that trigger and you get out of it okay, but every so often you bite the bullet, and metaphorically that's your car into the wall with damage. So as there goes Sean Cuthbertson, slow to the right.
I believe that is through turn 1. We've seen a few cars do that. He manages to save it though, doesn't collect any other cars or run into the tires, so he didn't lose anything else but time there rather. So that's I guess the silver lining of that incident.
Oh, there's John Kuzlin going by John Kelly there. That's her position. 11th position, as a matter of fact. No, just one thing, I guess, to get what your guys' opinion on this is, but I think the thing is VIR, it seems like every corner is off camber. That's just the feeling I get from not everyone, but there's so many of them there. Like, I mean, 2/3 of the course seems like it's off camber, and it makes it very interesting to drive.
Oh, and we've got Eduardo Benica off and into the pits. Looks like he has some severe right or left side damage on his car. That's unfortunate. He was doing quite well, running about 5th place in his class, and he's going to have to get some of that damage repaired, and he'll lose quite a few positions because of that. So that's unfortunate for him in his debut GTC race. But I haven't driven VIR a lot, but the few times that I have raced here, I will definitely agree with you. Even though the corners might not be off camber, they definitely feel like it. They have that way of making you feel like the car is just about to go sliding off the circuit and into the tire wall.
Actually, come to think of it, are any of you guys in this race?
No, unfortunately, I was not able to make it. I got back from, I didn't have any practice, and I got back from a dinner like an hour before the race, and I decided VIR really wasn't the track to try to practice and qualify in the race.
Yeah, that was I had a similar reason for missing this race as well.
Yeah, actually, it's one of the things that for those viewers at home don't run ISRA or are new to iRacing or both, but basically the VIR, because it is so difficult when I do my practice, if I can get 3 clean laps in a row without going off, I shut practice down and just and there's Carl Mumbauer off, and I think he's lost. He's no longer in Virginia anymore. I think he's somewhere in North Carolina now. But actually, I don't know what end of the state this is at, but we'll say it's south end.
We'll say you're right.
Yeah, whichever way, he's a long way away, unfortunately there. But yeah, no, it's just one of those tracks where you get a few clean laps, you get the feel. You don't want to push your luck. You don't work on setup all that much. If the car feels good enough to keep on the track, you shut her down and come back another day. Get ready to race.
Yeah, I consider this to be our Monaco Grand Prix of the GTC, just because it's very tight. Not really as it has a lot more fast portions because there is that long back straight, there is that front straightaway where you do get speed, but it's very tight, very twisty, and hard to pass people here.
I'd kind of equate it more to the Nordschleife, the Nurburgring, which unfortunately we don't have in our racing. Which Steve Myers, Dave Gamer, whoever's listening to this right now, please, that'd be fantastic. I understand there's logistical issues involved with scanning a track of such magnitude, but I think that's the feeling you get driving around here. It's very narrow, very tight, and Brent Bryles, don't get hit. Did not get hit. Good thing I said that. And Brent will live to fight another day. And that's another lesson learned for VIR is there's going to be spins, there's going to be incidents. Try to keep the car in one piece. If you're able to bring it home, you'll get a good finish. So Brent's lost time. He's lost a few positions, but he's back on the track. He's in one piece, and 58 minutes left. Lots of time to make that up. Also lots of time to find a wall somewhere again, but
yeah, exactly.
That's the double-edged sword of VIR. Oh, it's a nice tight three-way battle for the lead. You got James Cullen, Eduardo Prado, and Ricardo Machuca. Ricardo and James typically part of those battles. Eduardo Prado new to this front-end battle last few races, but as they seem to like to do, they like to hog all our camera time by doing all this close racing up front.
Yeah, I have to say, Prado has definitely hit the GTC Cadillac class in stride. He's come in and really been one of the few guys that have been able to bring the fight to James Cullen for the win. I mean, there haven't, before Prado joined the Cadillac class, there hasn't been a whole lot of drivers that have been able to challenge the dominance that is James Cullen in
not on a
these
regular
GT
basis.
cars. Yeah.
Like Mark Payne and Ricardo have been too.
Yeah, they've been there, but not always, or they've been close, but not quite enough to actually be there and fight for the win. But it's good to see that there are drivers out there that will put some pressure on James Cullen, and these 3 drivers right now are doing a very, very good job. The top 3 cars currently separated by not even right about a second, not even if that. So a lot of close, good racing.
Yeah, I'm just realizing something here. We noticed at the beginning of the race, Dan pointed out that the pit entry thing went crazy, and I think what's happening here at VIR, because it's so narrow, I think the simulator is catching, thinking you're pitting in when you're just driving up the straightaway there coming out of Hogpen. So as they're coming out of this corner here, which is Hogpen, they kind of go up the track there. There's a pit entrance just to your right there is where the camera position is, and I think some cars there, if they get a little close to that, it'll go pit in, pit out. So if you see that flash up on the right hand or left hand side of the screen there, with the 0 on the time, it'll be a pit in and a pit out real quickly. That's most likely what's happening.
Go on board here with Brian Huff, and you can see in his rear view camera, he goes wide. But I was going to say, just point out how hard it is for the Daytona prototypes to get by the Cadillacs. There aren't a whole lot of places to do it. You can saw, I think that was Mike Kelly in his Daytona prototype yet. I think that was because that's Brian Carey just behind, try and poke his nose in, but there wasn't really any room for him to get by. And so once the prototypes are catching up with especially the top 3 cars, since they're so close, it's going to be pretty tough. Oh, and there's a big wreck there. That is the Daytona prototype of...
Wow. All right, well, there's no safety car here, but folks, had that been in real life, that's not a good place to go off. That's right in the entrance of the pit lane there, probably pretty high speed, and one of those times where you're glad. I think that was Marty Jeffries there, about 20 feet up in the air, upside down.
Yeah, luckily this is a simulation. I can laugh at that. That was quite a severe accident. We haven't really seen one that severe since I think last season, possibly, when I went flying off at Road America, so...
Yeah, yours was severe enough that you went over the fence and basically disappeared into nothingness.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Ryan Huff. Oh, keep it off. Well, look. See, there's a lot of places, too, where there's not a lot of walls here, and that's one of them. Actually, you can notice, you can see over his the rear of the car there, you can see how the track kind of comes across. And I think we're heading towards Oak Tree, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're coming down those hills, down the end of the S's there, coming in towards Oak Tree, I have not done it in these cars, but I've definitely done it in the FW31 Williams Formula 1 car. But you lose it coming off the top of the hill there, and you spin, and you can basically spin right across and cut across the track on the other side.
Yeah, I've done that many times in practice, trying to figure out the fastest that I can take those set of corners.
All right, well, we got the Battle of British Isles apparently there. Well, not to say the British Isles, I apologize to Dan Gralte's Irish flag there, not part of the British Empire, but basically those are 2 ISRA admins there, actually the 2 ISRA admins. Number 11, Dan Gralte, is our series admin, and the Colin McLean there, number 68, is the ISRA League admin. So good battle for those 2 guys there. Not sure who handles a protest if they take each other out, but I guess I'll just settle it the old-fashioned way, paper, rock, scissors, that sort of thing. Or just for those of you who happen to follow NASCAR, and I caught a clip of that today, you could send both your crews together and beat the tar out of each other. Yeah,
that's also a viable option. Well, we've got a good battle here between Ryan Huff and John Kuzlin. This is a battle for 9th place in their class. We saw Ryan Huff had gone, I think he'd gone off a couple times in the same lap, but he seems to be able to recover quite well, and he's making up distance, and he's right on the back end of John Kuzlin. See, there is a Daytona prototype coming up, so that could affect this battle, although I'm assuming he should be able to get by once they hit the back straight without affecting these guys too much.
Yeah, whoever that Daytona prototype is, probably playing it very, very smart. Seeing he's got 2 Cadillacs up ahead. He's not going to get past both of them, but he should be able to drive past both of them on the straightaway. So it's Brent Briles there. Look, he goes flying past Ryan Huff. He should be able to get John Kuzlin before the next corner, hopefully, for him.
Take a look at the battle between the top 2 cars as James Cullen and Eduardo Prado. Ricardo Machuca falling back a little bit from this battle. He's about 2 seconds behind Prado, but still very much in this fight. There's still 52 minutes left in the race, so he is not out of the race yet. And it looks like Brent Briles was able to get by both of these battling Cadillacs easily enough. Both of them still very close. Looks like John Rossuto is also going to look to get by with some fairly severe front end damage on his car, but I think he'll be by before turn 1.
Track very, very bumpy too, as you can see. A lot of the cars even going on the straightaway. A lot of pitch involved there, bouncing up and down on the suspension going on the start. So a lot of force put on these cars, even simulated ones. Sometimes in a view like this, I forget. I was watching some V8s supercars earlier today, and this is pretty much what it looks like. With bumping and everything, just like it.
Yeah, I was just about to point that out. Looks pretty much exactly like the VA's. A little bit of bumping, no harm because of it. Just a little bit of a love tap, if you will. And here's some close with Chuck Chambliss. If these guys are battling for 9th place. Looks like Chuck Chambliss is still in the race despite all the damage that he's occurred so far in this race. He's managed to stay out. I guess no damage to his steering or suspension, or at least major damage anyway, and he's been able to stay out and hopefully make limit his pit stops to just his one scheduled one.
I know, I've been out pretty much every race here, but just the way the camera is on the Daytona prototype, it zoomed a little bit, so you really don't get a sensation of the speed or a good feel of the way it looks like when you're actually in the car racing. Seems to kind of almost slow things down a little bit, so definitely going through the oak tree there was definitely a little bit more hairy in the when you're sitting in the cockpit as opposed to watching it on the screen here.
Yeah, I think it's just because of the focus of the camera. It kind of blurs the dash or the inside of the car and focuses on the outside. It just gives that bit of the slowing effect that you were talking about. Able to take advantage of the draft and help to close the gap a little bit between himself and Morsdorf, but he's able to do that under braking, much better under braking than Morsdorf, and he'll pull right into the back of him. Let's see what happens as they catch up to these cars. John Kuzlin going wide, but he manages to keep it off the tires, which is very important. He'll lose a spot to Ryan Huff, and that will drop Kuzlin down into 10th place. But still, he's still in the race and still fighting, so that is the important part. He's lasting longer than a lot of the other guys that went off and couldn't keep it off of the barriers or the tires. So good job to do that. That is a feat in itself.
Yeah, he's sitting in 10th place right now, but depending on how things are going here, if he's able to stay on the track, that guarantee at least 2 or 3 guys ahead of him will experience issues at some point. Just statistics will tell.
Oh, and that looked like backwards. Morsdorf went off the track, and I think just behind him, that was Ryan Huff spinning as they were heading down to...
Russell Cow in the pit lane from 2nd place.
Wow, and that looks, I believe that is a bit early, so I'm assuming that is because of damage.
Yeah, I'm not sure to the end with 49 minutes. It'll be close, but I assume you wouldn't be pitting now unless you needed to.
So a little bit of change up here. We've got Timothy Stoll still leading, but Mike Kelly and Brian Carey will move into the top 3 because of the early pit stop. And the battle that we are watching on screen between Jerry Morsdorf and Chuck Chambliss. Morsdorf went off the track going through I believe it was South Bend, and also Ryan Huff spun going through that corner just behind him, and he'll lose his spot to John Kuzlin, who is now up into 8th place, past Todd Carver, who is being shown in the pit lane at the moment.
You can really hear the downshifts there as Carl Mumbach comes down to first corner now, coming up to John Kuzlin, but now we're going to show the pit stop. There's Todd Carver in the pits with Ryan Huff just behind him. Todd Carver coming out and see what he went into the pits as, but looks like he'll be coming out in 11th place, perhaps. See if anyone else gets past. No, 11th place. So that he should be good to the end. As I say, you normally get a bit more variety in the Cadillac pit stops. I mean, you might get someone stopping a little bit earlier and going to the end, whereas Daytona prototypes, typically no one will stop before half distance, which in this case is 37.5 minutes.
And we jump on board with John Kelly, who has yet to make his pit stop, and he's currently battling with Todd Carver, who it looks like he lets by. I guess he knows that he still has to pit, and Carver is a faster driver here at this circuit, so he'll let him by and get on with his race.
You're noticing John, I mean, a little bit of correction there, but basically he'll be very, very, very smooth with his driving inputs there, just trying to make sure he hits all his marks, keeps the car underneath them, trying to keep the tires in maximum contact in the road, not doing anything to upset it. Nice and easy through Oak Tree here, and roll onto the gas, powered up the hill, and I mean, he's keeping it going right now. I mean, Todd Carver's able to go past him. Todd's pushing a little bit harder, but John knows he's not going to win this race on pure speed, so he's got to make sure he keeps it underneath them and has a good one for the last third of the race.
Yeah, and I think that you can have a good result here just by driving your race slow and steady, because we've seen so many incidents and cars going off, and even though they might not make contact with the wall or have to retire because of damage, some sort of damage, they still are losing a lot of time. And if you're one of the drivers that manages to stay on the circuit and not lose time because of that, then you will definitely have an advantage over the other guys that are driving off because they're pushing harder. And close battling there between Jerry Morsdorf and Chuck Chambliss, both of them trying to get by. I believe that was James Mines currently running in 7th before they head into the S's there, and both of them able to do it. But that is a tricky spot, hard to do, and if you're not quite there, that could cause some issues. See Jerry Morsdorf's held up behind the number 1 car of Lauren Bateman as they head through Oak Tree, but he'll get by on the straight.
I was thinking both those cars, the Daytona Prototype and the Cadillac, they roll through Oak Tree pretty much the same speed, so you don't tend to lose a lot of time there. Getting them through the S's, though, on the other hand, the Daytona Prototype much faster there, so going through the S's, if you get caught behind one of the Cadillacs, that'll lose you a ton of time. Roller Coaster and Hog Pen, too, another big one there. For no other reason than you just don't want to chance it. Both cars there pretty much untamed beasts going through those corners, and basically close your eyes and hope for the best and wait till you're out of them. Well, without the eyes closed part, I guess, but you get the idea. And then, so you don't want to be sticking your nose in on someone there when they're trying like hell not to go off the track. It is unavoidable on occasion, but you try to minimize those at all possible.
And Todd Carver battling right now with Stephen Clark, and looks like he's able to easily get by before they head down into turn 14.
Carver's going to have to send out a lot of Christmas cards this year, it looks like. He's getting a lot of help from his Cadillac brethren there.
Yes, indeed he is. That moves Todd Carver up into 9th place currently, and he already has made his pit stop, so he won't have to do any more but keep it on the track. Oh,
and he's heading off to the West Virginia side of the track now. And all right, well, he'll just have the work to do again. Got to get past Stephen Clark one more time. I'd like to point out there in the Daytona Prototypes that Timothy Stall's opened out about a 5-second lead over Mike Kelly. It's been pretty steady. Who's another about 14 seconds ahead of Brian Carey, and then he's another 15 or so seconds ahead of John Middleton. So a little bit spread out in the Daytona Prototypes, not spread out in the Cadillacs, as you can see here. Eduardo Prado right on Cullen's tail.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Ricardo Machuca has fallen to be about 8.5 seconds off of Prado. So obviously he had some sort of off somewhere. Luckily managed to keep it off of the tire wall or the barriers if he did, but he's definitely not in the fight for the top position anymore. It's just between Cullen and Prado right now.
Alright, we've got about 43 minutes left here. I'm just going to I'll be off the air for about 30 seconds. I just realized that I needed a beverage to make sure my throat doesn't die on me halfway through this race here. So we'll let Anthony and Dan take over this intense battle, and I will be right back.
Well, indeed, it is intense, Brian, as you go to get your beverage as we go outside. Now it was good to ride on board with Eduardo Prado as he made his way through the S's just to see how the Cadillacs take those corners. See the heavy... Definitely these, you can tell these are heavy cars. It looks like they're shifting a lot of weight through those S-bends. Both cars tipping wheels off just a little bit as they head down the back straight. These guys are separated by about half a second right now, and they've been separated by about half a second for most of the race. If you go back to qualifying, their positions were actually switched. Prado managed to out-qualify James Cullen, but Cullen able to get by in the opening laps, and he's stayed there throughout the entirety of the race so far, and but hasn't been able to pull away. They've been keeping pretty consistent race pace as we go back and look at the
Daytona Prototype.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a good battle a bit farther down the GT class between Colin McLean and Daniel Gralti. These guys are in 4th and 5th at the moment, and they're separated by about half a second, just like the two leaders in their class are. And this is a pretty good battle between the two admins for the series.
Alright, I just got back here. Yeah, no, it looks like Colin McLean and Dan Gralti, they're pretty equal in speed. I mean, obviously, It looks like Dan might be able to get a little bit, pull away a little bit here, but if he was able to get past, however, probably not by a lot. Otherwise, he might have made a stronger run up to this point. There's Cullen and Clark, part 2.
Or Carver and Clark.
Yes, Carver. Talk to me.
Carver taking a bold move down there, heading into turn 11 as he came out of the South Bend corner, heading towards Oak. And that was quite brave, and luckily Stephen Clark stuck it on the left side of the circuit. And that was Tim McLeish getting a little loose coming out, and that luckily avoided there by Chuck Chambliss as they head into the S's right now. But or that was actually through Snake, actually. Yes, my mistake.
Hadn't noticed the paint, the skin on Chuck's roof there. It's actually a little bit confusing. It looks like he's the number 2 car that way.
We'd covered that earlier. That's the.
Oh no! I know what it is, but the big number 2 makes it look like he's passing himself off as the number 2 car.
Yes.
Actually, seeing it from the top view, it actually looks a bit like some of the Lotus prototype cars that I've been seeing recently in various endurance type series. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing there. It's actually, until you notice it from the top, it's kind of hard to see there. However, that being said, Mike Kelly, the number 2 car, luckily has a very, very different paint scheme, and Experience has at least told us here in the booth that kind of know what Mike Kelly's car looks like, and Chuck, I think it was Daytona where he debuted that paint scheme, where it kind of threw us off a bit there when we first saw it, not knowing what was going on. But again, check out the website there to get some more information. Oh, there goes Dan Gralty.
Yeah, Daniel Gralty looking at the challenge. On the inside going into turn 1, it's definitely got the inside advantage, and Colin McLean going to get held on the outside even longer with Chuck Chambliss going through. So that will move Daniel Gralty up into 4th place. Well done.
Actually, I don't know if that was the case there, but one of the things I noticed when lapping some of the Cadillacs is the Cadillacs don't want to give up a lot of time when they're letting the other cars through, knowing that the faster car will find its way by. But if you don't give the other car a little bit of help there, the Daytona prototype will have to make a pass in any way they could. They do it. They'll do it safely, obviously, but in that case, there it looked like Colin McLean got held up on the outside, whereas had he maybe conceded the corner just a little bit sooner, he would have been able to tuck back in and take his apex, but he found himself stuck on the outside and ended up losing more time than he otherwise might have. So it's always a balancing act. I mean, it's easy for me to say now with hindsight and sitting up here in the booth, but it's one of those things where you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons sometimes, and those are them. Oh! Wow. That was not at all expected.
Yeah, that is something we haven't seen a whole lot of this season. That is a blown engine there for Chuck Chambliss, and that will be his race. He will be forced to retire, and I'm not exactly sure how he managed to do that, but unfortunate for Chuck Chambliss, he's had a tough race today.
Yeah, I noticed we talk about how sometimes the mechanicals are computer issues when you're doing the simulated racing, and the actual things like that don't happen that often. I think that's probably the first blown engine we've seen here in our commentary. I know they've happened before. Having been a part of one before, but it's just it normally doesn't get caught on camera like that. That was literally shocking.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen any this season. I think last season we saw Timothy Stoll blow his engine on the opening lap at Daytona, I believe it was.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. But that's the only other one we've seen, and again in a Daytona prototype. So other than that, I don't think we've seen one. So a very rare and unfortunate incident for Chuck Chambliss.
Yeah, I almost forgot that just because at the beginning of last season, I know Timothy had the most appalling luck, be it crashes or mechanicals.
Yeah.
I just want to point out we're at 37.5 minutes. We're at the halfway point of the race, so any pit stops from here on in should be scheduled in the last ones. Looks like, no, Tim Stoll is in the pits legitimately this time. Mike Kelly has reassumed the lead, or has assumed the lead, I should say. He hadn't been there yet.
Yep, and the gap was pretty steady, 5 seconds or so. That I think the last time we pointed out, it was about 5 seconds as well. I think maybe Stoll pulled it out to about 6 seconds, but other than that, the gap between those two drivers has been fairly steady, as has the gap between James Cullen and Eduardo Prado. Right now, about 0.6 of a second separating the two drivers, and that's about what it's been the entire race ever since Cullen was able to get through into first place.
Yeah, unless James makes a mistake, I don't know that Eduardo has the pace to he has the pace to hold on to him, but not the pace to catch up and pass. Over the last time I said that, with Dan Gralty and Colin McLean, Dan made a pass and then I'm at a lap. So let's wait and see how this turns out.
It'll be interesting because both of these drivers do have great race pace, but because this circuit is so hard to pass at, and the talent of we've seen the defending talent that James Cullen has. It'll be interesting to see if Eduardo Prado is able to put some sort of move for the lead on James Cullen. Like I said, this is a very difficult place to pass, and even if you are able to put some sort of crafty move, it can be difficult just to pull it off because of the narrowness of the circuit and the difficulty that it is you have passing other cars here.
Now, I was going to mention, we saw on the onboard, but look how these cars are eating up the curbs there on either side as they cross over them, left, right in the S's there.
Yeah, that's a very good to see here. I mean, these cars are very well modeled, but in this track in particular, really got to use the curve, especially coming up the S's there. You have to hit them just right. If you hit them wrong, you can still pitch you off, but the Cadillacs seem to be doing a very, very good job of using every inch of available track, curbs included. Geez, in the front of John Rizzuto's car looks like he talked about someone's mother. That is just crunched it. And there's Carlos Passos back on and off again at a high rate of speed. So I thought he was done crashing for the evening, but apparently not.
He's currently running in 12th place, and that would be 8 laps off of the leader, who is currently Brian Carey, with Timothy Stoll and Mike Kelly both making pit stops. So that means that Brian Carey inherits the lead, and he'll get I believe you get a bonus point for leading the lap. So that's another point for his championship bid before he makes his scheduled pit stop.
Yeah, it's one of the things I don't like trying to commentate on my own race here, as we have run these races previously when we do the commentary on it, but I forgot that happened, so that's a surprising bit of news for me right now. Just currently giving myself a pat on the back, and then I'll continue with the Prado-Cullen battle here that looks like Ricardo Machuca had pitted last lap, so he separated himself. He was still about 8 seconds behind anyways, but these guys have yet to pit, so this will be the pit stops will be a good opportunity for them to, or at least Eduardo in particular, to make up some ground and maybe make a pass.
Yeah, these two drivers have been pretty much, an equal race pace for the entire race. Cullen hasn't been able to pull a gap on Prado, and Prado hasn't been able to get by James Cullen, or really close the gap to even offer a chance for him to get by. So maybe pit stops is that opportunity that he is looking for.
Yeah, it looked like the car up ahead there, the thing that might have been Ryan Huff, wasn't quite sure, but
yeah, I think it was.
He got pretty well and truly on Eduardo's way, and allowed Cullen to gap an initial half second, which is, considering it's been under a second the entire time, a pretty big gap in Greece.
Yeah, I don't really think there was anything that Huff could do at that point. Cullen was able to get by heading into the corner just before Oak Tree. I believe that's turn 11, and there wasn't really anywhere for Huff to go. I mean, he couldn't get out of the way to allow him by, and that's the way multi-class racing works. Unfortunately, Prado lost out, and he's about 1.5 seconds or so back. So unfortunate for him. Hopefully he's able to catch back up, but that, because he has dropped that time, that might not allow him to make a pass in the pit lane, rather, because of the little bit of extra gap.
Yeah, we were just on board with Lance Snyder there, letting a few cars by, obviously rocking out to Iron Maiden as he is contractually obligated to do during each one of these races. That'd be a sweet contract anyways. You'd have to rock out to Iron Maiden. That'd be a rough one to get.
Part of the weight of your car must be a big sound system, so other drivers and indeed the fans watching can experience your sponsorship.
Yeah, you have to carry around 2 roadies at all times.
Yeah.
I think it'd be awesome in real racing where all your sponsor appearances are going to concerts. It'd be like killing two birds with one stone, traveling the world racing and going to concerts.
That would be quite the awesome sponsor.
And the other thing left would be traveling by each race by spaceship, and you're all set.
Well, we're getting a look at James Mines' number 84 Red Bull Racing Cadillac. Don't get to see a whole lot of James Mines. His races, I guess, are fairly quiet, which is can be a good thing, can be kind of a whatever thing, I guess. It's good that we're not seeing him because he's going off this track, but also would be nice to see him battling with other cars. It looks like he's doing so right now, currently battling with Lauren Bateman. Oh, Timothy Stoll
off track.
Can he keep it off the... Oh, he does. Well, that was quite important right there, and I'm sure a pretty big Tucker moment.
There he is.
And there goes the... that's going to be probably for the lead as soon as Brian Carey enters the pits. So that is going to be Mike Kelly taking the lead from Timothy Stoll as soon as Brian Carey decides to make his pit stop.
Oh, and John Middleton just flies by. That was for 6th position there in the Daytona Prototypes. Tim McLeod's just making his pit stop, so this is a flat-out battle for a position here.
We've also got a pretty close battle between James Mines and Lauren Bateman. This is for 6th place in the Cadillac, so both of these drivers are fighting for a pretty good position in their class.
It looks like, remember I'm reading this car wrong there, but he looks like a, is that a German flag or is that just another Red Bull logo up at the top of the car there?
I think it's a Red Bull logo. If he was doing the appropriate flag for Red Bull, it would be Austria.
Yep, well that's what I was just wondering if he was, we had ourselves another German-American in the race here, but...
That'd be nice.
He's stealing your thunder, though.
Well, actually, he'd have his own thunder since I'm not in this race.
Well, yeah, for this race in particular, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, Red Bull has a history of sponsoring awesome stuff, so...
they do.
Nice to see the Red Bull in the car there. I know it was a little while ago, but watching a guy jump from the edge of space...
Yeah.
Randomly awesome.
Yeah, I was just about to suggest that maybe James Mines will be the next person to go ahead and do that.
Oh, Dan Gralty coming to the pits at his 2nd place in the Cadillacs here, so that's going to elevate Colin McLean up to 2nd place, and more than likely Eduardo Prado back up to 3rd place. I would assume, since Eduardo had quite the gap on him heading into the pit stops there. James Cullen still maintaining his lead, so not sure how that works there, but I think James will benefit from the fact that he'll have to take on less fuel, assuming that their cars weren't tanked up when they started.
Yep, and that could possibly impact how the cars cycle through as pit stops happen, so it'll be interesting to watch play out. Right now we have James Cullen still leading, not taking his one scheduled pit stop yet. Eduardo Prado, he's currently running in 3rd place. He has taken his pit stop, and he is currently 37 and about 0.3 of a second off of 1st place. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Colin McLean currently holding 2nd place, but he will lose that once he decides to make his scheduled pit stop.
There goes James Mines, kind of good camera view of him sliding it around turn 1 there, trying to get the car pointed in the right direction. Getting the power down too, that's one thing in the car turned, rotated around the corner, but also trying to get the power on too as you're going to the next corner as it's snaking left and right still, even though it's virtually a straight because you can take it pretty much flat out. It's still very difficult to get the loud pedal down on the floor and get the car moving again. Looks like Colin McLean is actually in the pits there, so we'll see how he comes out with relation to Dan Gralty, who he's most directly battling with.
Yep, and James Cullen also in the pits. Yep. Oh, and Eduardo Prado takes the lead over James Cullen, and he's got the lead by over 2 seconds as it is right now, and that gap is holding steady close to 3 seconds, so that is quite interesting. I'm actually surprised to see that much of a gap between those two.
Well, just keep in mind too, the amount of fuel you put into these cars here, it takes a little while to fill up the car. So if Eduardo had short filled to try to gain up some time there, you have to make sure that he's got enough fuel to get to the end of the race. So don't discount that factor. And it looks like Brian Carey, myself there, is still leading in Daytona Prototype. I don't remember any of that, but okay.
It was all a blur. And actually, this is quite interesting right now, too. Colin McLean has retaken 4th place from Daniel Gralti after pit stops have cycled through. There's about a 2-second gap between those two drivers. So Colin McLean making a pass in the pit lane on his co-admin of the series. And here's the two current leaders of... Actually, no, this is not the current leader of the GT class, but it is the current leader of the Daytona Prototype class, Brian Carey, as he makes his way through traffic. And you can see that was Eduardo Prado just in front of James Cullen and Brian Carey right there.
That's one of those things, too. I notice every time I come up to lap James in particular, I know there are guys that are as fast as James, but for some reason... I'm not sure how he goes to the corner or what, but it feels like I'm lapping a Daytona Prototype most of the time. It's really weird. Like he'll get into the corner super deep. He'll get off the corner. It's just that mid corner where he's slower, but his entrance and exits are phenomenal. So it's really hard to get that run in there, and that's where he makes up most of his time. I think most of the guys, their relative speed through entrance and exit and all that are pretty identical. And hey, there I am.
Yep, Brian Carey pulling into the pits, and that means that Mike Kelly already retakes the lead from him, and Timothy Stoll will most likely pass. He's about 15 seconds back off Brian Carey, so he should lose 2nd place. Yep, there he goes right now. So see if Brian Carey is able to come out of the pits in 3rd place. I think he's fairly secure. There's about 30 seconds between himself and 4th place, who is currently being held by Brent Briles. But the battle between in the Cadillac class, rather, has heated back up. There was a sizable gap between Prado and Cullen after pit stops, but that has shrunk down to about 0.8 of a second. And we know that James Cullen is going to be pushing hard, trying to catch back up and then try and find a way around Prado. Looks like that's also the overall race leader, Mike Kelly, coming up to lap these guys as well. So he'll be looking to get past both of this battle for the 1st place in Cadillacs before they hit the next corner. So that way he's not held up, they're not held up. He easily gets by James Cullen, and I'm assuming he'll be able to get by Prado as well. Timothy Stoll 10 seconds off of Mike Kelly right now, so that's a comfortable gap between himself and Stoll, but I'm sure he doesn't want to get held up when he doesn't have to.
Like I say, the first half of this race was dominated by Eduardo Prado being right on James's tail, so let's see what James can do there. That's one of the things, too, is when you're on a track like this and you know you've got the pace and you know you've got things under control, you want to make sure you hit all your marks, and with James in the lead there, he probably wasn't pushing as hard as he could have, knowing that he had the lead well and, covered pretty much. Now that he doesn't have the lead, you're going to see him turn the wick up a little bit, and you see the steering wheel coming side to side there. Very, very sharp contrast to what I had mentioned earlier with John Kelly.
Yes, and this is pretty much the gap that we saw separating these two drivers before the pit stop cycled through. So this will be interesting to see if if these guys are as balanced as we thought. It'll be interesting to see if Prado has enough race pace to keep James Cullen behind him. Right now, I'm going to say he has enough to at least put up a good fight. James Cullen looking like he's probably pushing a bit more than he was in the first half of the race.
Really, really great camera shot from the helicopter there. That helicopter shot brought to you by Z1Simwheel.com, so make sure you guys venture out. There's actually a we mentioned at the beginning, and Dan's mentioned at the beginning of each broadcast there, but you can actually buy the software now for the Z1 Sim Wheel separately from the hardware that they sell. Hardware is, very good product there, and I'd like to get one as soon as possible. But also for those who are very interested in the software is extremely helpful in figuring out some basic telemetry parameters, changing some items on the car. Even if you're using a separate touchscreen, that'd be extremely helpful as well. So the z1simwheel.com for product details there.
Yep, and
it's also great for everyone who has a simulator with the screen set up so the dashboard is off screen, which is my case, and I think a lot of other people's cases. So that way it lets you get that dash back in there and still have the view that you want from your car.
Oh, and Tim Stahl there is looking a little ragged as he's trying to get past this battle here for the lead in the Cadillacs. Yes, for those people like Dan who have a triple screen SimXperience motion rig, probably a pretty ridiculous sound setup down there as well. One of those things that you can, if you had Sim Racing Dan, which is Dan's YouTube channel there, you get to see all the races that we're showing here. That is a part of it, as he had mentioned before, but you get to watch that from over his shoulder and get to see what one of our prominent internet sim racers, Daniel Coroni there, does each and every Monday night, except for this Monday night. I like using absolute talk with exceptions. Makes it seem more powerful.
I switched over to headphones so that people can hear me commentate while I'm driving, so not too exciting on the sound front, unfortunately.
Yeah, but rest assured that if you wanted to, the sound would be awesome.
Yes, in person, the sound is awesome. Here is the battle between the two drivers. This is very close. James Cullen looking to get on the inside, as it looks like, I'm not sure where they're at on the track, but Prado's going to be able to hold them off, it looks like, as they get through. Yep, and there's another left-hander that looks like in the early part of the track, but James Cullen going to try and battle back. He's going to be on the inside. No, he's not going to be on the inside. Prado going to be able to hold him off under braking. That was a really close chance for Cullen to be able to get by, not quite able to do it.
Well, it's not over yet. Yeah, it looks like he's still in the drafter coming up the hill. Now there is Karl Mumbauer in the Daytona prototype probably watching this and wondering what he does. He's sitting in 10th place right now, about 20 seconds behind Matthew Boyd. And you don't want to stick your nose in there and cause an accident, especially ruin a race like this. So he's just going to wait and see. And they're also coming up to lap John Kuzland in the Cadillac there, who's running in 10th place in his class. So,
and that's quite impressive because John Kuzlin doesn't often get lapped. I'm assuming that he'll just slow up a little bit and let both of these guys by. But this is quite interesting because I'm sure Karl Mumbauer wants to get by here, but because we don't see no, he doesn't. Okay, well, I thought he might slow down and pull over to let him by, but Karl Mumbauer able to get by. Okay, right, and there he goes. Yeah, he goes through into the corner. So no, everyone pretty much gets through there just fine. No one really loses too much time, which is good to see. I thought that we might see John Kuzlin keep fighting his way in front of these guys, but he did slow down in the end.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be hard-pressed to find another driver more aware than John Kuzlin there. So he saw Karl Mumbauer up, he'd checked the lap deltas, he saw where he was, decided to let them get a run, let Karl make his pass before he let the other guys pass, and that turned out fantastic for everyone. That was excellent multi-class racing. That was just so those of you watching this back at home, rewind that, watch it again. For those of you open servers, ISRA, I mean, that's how it's done right there. Everyone got through there with a minimal amount of time lost. No one's race was ruined, and I mean, that happened in real time. So. Yeah, and James Cullen, he can still smell blood right now, folks, so just keep an eye on this right here. That wasn't the last chance he had to pass Eduardo, so that's a nice camera shot right there. I like that. Wish I'd use that more often.
Go on board here with Jerry Morsdorf in his Daytona prototype, and he's currently chasing down Tim McLeish This is the battle for 7th place as they head around pretty close to the timing line and make their way around that's turn 17, I believe, heading through the final couple corners.
Yeah, Jerry's got very bizarrely colored gloves considering the black and red color of his car. Looks like he's got like 2006 Fernando Alonso gloves.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Good call.
Or maybe perhaps Fernando Alonso's trying to drive that car, but no offense to Jerry and his speed, but probably not.
And it looks like they're coming up onto the Cadillac of James Mines, who is still battling with Lauren Bateman, although not as close as they were. And it doesn't look like Tim McLeish is going to be able to get by before they head into the S's, so they'll have to follow him through there. And I guess really not going to affect them too much. If he could get by, it would really help him gap between himself and Jerry Morrisdorf, but not going to happen this time.
Yeah, I know, James, I'm just looking at the screen there. He's about 2.5 seconds behind Lauren, so he's not going to want to give up any time, but that was a... normally, they would have expected the Cadillac to let the Daytona prototypes through there, but through a few more S's here, and now coming up the straightaway, so... Again, it's one of those, like, especially when these guys are battling too, it's one of those things where you got to make sure that, you want to make sure you run your race, you don't want to lose enough time, but Daytona prototypes running the race too, the longer you're behind someone, just human nature, you're going to become more and more aggressive each corner you follow someone through. That got to make sure that doesn't end up ending both your races, but it looks like it ended up all right there. This battle continues, and let's see if Jerry's able to do anything about it using the pick from Lauren Bateman.
And I don't think it's going to be quite close enough heading into turn 1 now. And but he'll have he's quite close. It looks like he might have the pace to do it. He just needs to find the opportunity to actually initiate the pass attempt.
There's Tim's car is looking pretty beat up in the rear end there, so...
I was actually just about to point this out. The gap between the leaders in GT, pretty much the same, about fluctuating between 0.3 and about half a second. They're coming up to John Kelly, who slows down and allows them to go by on the inside there. Also, the gap between in the Daytona prototype class, Mike Kelly has a 20-second lead over Timothy Stoll. So I'm guessing Stoll may have had one or two more little slight offs somewhere on the circuit, and Stoll is currently about 10 and a half seconds in front of Brian Carey for 3rd place. And James Cullen is right on the back of Prado right now. He's really looking to see if he can't find a way by. We'll jump back over to the McLeish-Morrisdorf battle. This is for 7th place once again in Daytona prototypes. Jerry Morrisdorf after another lap, still not quite close enough to try and put a move into turn 1 on Jerry Morrisdorf.
Yeah, this is, I think, what we want to see right now. I'm just looking through the timing screens. This is by far the closest battle, and the most important is it's for a class lead, so...
You have another battle we were watching earlier in the race between Colin McLean and Daniel Gralty for the battle for 4th place in class. That has fallen to about a 3-second gap between those two drivers, so not really a battle happening there at the moment. These two drivers right here, they're definitely the ones to watch. Well, as we switch over to Brian Carey, who is, well, he's definitely closed the gap on Timothy Stoll. He's down to about... Ooh, well, there's why. As Stoll is off, looks like he got into the barrier possibly with some damage there on the right-hand side, and that is the pass for Brian Carey. He moves up into 2nd place. Let's see if there is any damage on Timothy Stoll. We'll keep an eye on the gap and see if that expands. And we'll see what happens to Timothy Stoll as we go back to the battle for first place in GTs.
Oh, James getting very, very squirrely there, coming onto the S's at the back there. Lost a bit of time, dropped to about a second and a quarter back here.
Timothy Stoll off again, heading down towards turn 11, and then Oak Tree getting held up between, who is that?
That's
Eduardo Benica. And he'll lose even more time on Brian Carey. It doesn't look like the gap hasn't opened up dramatically, so if there is a bit of damage, it is just slight, and isn't anything at the moment, at least, to be a cause for concern.
Whoa.
James Cullen getting very wide, dipping his tires off into the dirt, and getting some oversteer there coming out of the Oak Tree corner. He'll lose a bit of time. That gap's up to about 1.2 seconds right now between himself and Eduardo Prado. I don't know, what do you think? Is James Cullen pushing a little bit too hard right now, and he's kind of losing his rhythm? No, he definitely has to go. There's only 10 minutes left in the race, so there's not a whole lot of time for him to get by Prado for the lead.
Yeah, I don't know how the Cadillac, the tires heat up there, but he's definitely was a little ragged there the last couple laps, so at the very least he's going to have to kind of back off, get the car underneath him again. He's definitely got the pace to hold on to him. It's just how he's going to manage those tires for the last 10 minutes here. He's got it to about a second, so just over a second. If he calms down, next bit of traffic or whatnot, we'll give him a chance to get that back in. As I say that, he's gap's opened up to almost a second and a half, 2 seconds right now, so I'll have to cut back to that battle and see what's going on.
Take a look at Matthew Voigt, who's currently trying to battle and catch up to Jerry Morsdorf for 8th place. His car looks actually quite undamaged, which is quite good to see. I think quite a few of the Daytona prototypes have some sort of damage on their car, except maybe with the exception of the top 3 cars. So that's good to see another driver keeping his nose clean.
We're on board with Matthew right now. Car from the inside does not appear to be on fire, so that's good news for Matthew. Yep, so I mean, like, it's just he's got he's getting that gap down to Jerry. Jerry's kind of dropped off the back of Tim a little bit, so hopefully it'll come into 3 or 7. And that's so Timothy Stoll is off the track. I don't know if he's contacted anything, but he's not very quick to get back on the track there, so let's see how that car drives right now. Well, or not, I guess. Well, we just know he's off.
Yep, well, he's definitely dropped way back from Carey now. There's about 18 seconds separating the 2 drivers, so there's no chance for him to catch back up to Brian Carey unless he makes a mistake within the last 8 minutes of the race. But this battle between Voigt and Morsdorf, it's actually narrowing down quite a bit right now. It's only about a second between these 2 drivers. Matthew Voigt looking to make one final push with only 8 minutes left in the race.
I don't know what's going on with Jerry right now, but he has lost a lot of top speed. I don't know if in his battle with McLeish there, he took some front end damage or something, but he's dropped back from McLeish and come into the clutches of Matthew Voigt, who's he's got 8 minutes, so that's about 5 laps, something like that. Well, 4 laps, I guess, to work with. So we'll see how it plans out. Just by the way they're going right now, I think in a corner or 2 that Matthew Voigt's just gonna be able to drive right by him.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see how this battle between these 2 drivers plays out. Just want to update you on the gap between Prado and Cullen, the battle for the lead in GT. That gap hasn't come back down. Cullen is fluctuating between a second and a half to about 2 seconds off of Eduardo Prado for first place. And just wonder if he hasn't been able to manage his tires very well, and he's heated them up and hasn't been able to cool them back down to catch back up and close the gap between himself and Prado.
So Matthew Voigt, they're going through some of the corners. He was working on pretty worn tires there. You could tell it was just hard to get the car turned and pointed again. You want to be able to turn the car, get it pointed, get it launched off quickly, but it looked like when you wanted to get on the gas, the car was still rotating to the right, so That being said, we've got towards Oak Tree here, just kind of nice and easy on the brakes. Let the car roll through here, slowly on the brakes again, down a gear, and see who gets on the gas first. Looks like they're on the gas pretty similar, and there's that top speed thing. It looked like this might be Matthew Voigt's chance to get a run and draft in, but we'll see. I don't know if he's got quite enough there, so this might not be as easy as I predicted earlier. Looks like their top speed is pretty much identical.
Yeah, I wonder if Jerry Morsdorf just had a bit of oversteer or something coming off of turn 17 or out of the hog pen, and that was just the difference for the reason for the difference in speed. It looks like he gets a fairly nice run coming out of hog pen right now, and there's a sizable gap between himself and Voigt, so Voigt not going to be able to do anything going into turn 1 this lap.
Yes, and sizable gap now in this case being 0.7 of a second, so it's all relative when you're talking about battles like this. But so I think Matthew Voigt came full head of steam, caught right up to the back of him, but as soon as you get back of a car ahead, as soon as you get to the back of a car ahead of you, you you lose that momentum, and you got to try to find it again to make that overtake.
I think both of these drivers are, they might be struggling on their tires right now. I saw Jerry Morsdorf go through a corner very wide. I think he maybe tried to take his braking just a little bit too deep and took a little too much speed, but he did manage to recover and kept Matthew Voigt behind him, which is the important part. Just under 5 minutes left in the race now, so not a whole lot more opportunities for Matthew Voigt to get by. They're pretty equal coming out of the Oak Tree corner as they head down the back straight, so it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, like Brian said, they put top speed pretty much even despite the draft that Matthew Voigt is getting. Doesn't seem to be any advantage for Voigt as they head down the back straight.
I don't think he pulled up. It's weird because it looked like he got off the corner a little bit better than Morsdorf, but here we go side by side. See if there's really not a lot Voigt can do to get past. He's just trying to hold the position and get a run on him, but we're coming into hog pen here. So basically what Voigt's going to need to do is literally get draft does not seem to be working for his car for whatever reason, so he's going to need to go old school and get a better run right off the corner and only use that to his advantage.
Yeah, when we got some close-up shots of Voigt's car, I did notice a bit of damage on the front corners of his car. Ooh, and looks like Jerry Morsdorf was a little bit wide through turn 1 and 2, but manages to hold on to the position. But
Jerry's having trouble getting it slowed down.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that, you can see you might be able to catch it. There's a little bit of damage on the front of Matthew Voigt's car. I'm not sure if that is the reason that he's not getting any benefit whatsoever from the draft or not. But it'd be interesting. He's really close now. If he can stay pretty close, maybe he can try and move as they head down the back straight and try and get by. There's some traffic coming up here, a few GT cars, so it'll be interesting to see if those play a factor in this battle.
And as I like to point out, looks like James Collins got the gap down to just under a second right now. So with just over 3 minutes left in this race, that's probably just a couple laps at VIR. The lead battle for the Cadillacs is tightening right back up again. Sadly, the lead battle for the Daytona prototypes couldn't be further apart right now.
Yeah, 34 seconds separating first and second. Mike Kelly still maintaining first place with Brian Carey in second. Another 20 seconds separates Brian Carey from Timothy Stoll, and that is the top 3 in Daytona prototypes. And this is quite close. There's another GT car, I believe that is James Mines up there, so that could play a factor. Matthew Voigt might have been. Let's see if he gets a good run coming out of here.
Yeah, it looked like Morsdorf had to pinch off the corner there to get around the Cadillac, and Matthew Voigt had a better run off the corner. See if he's going to try to make a dive. Morsdorf kind of blocking the inside. See if Matthew Voigt goes Nigel Mansell on him. He does not.
Nope.
But
he goes wide again.
Yeah, like I was saying, Morsdorf was having trouble getting the car slowed down, and that is the position right there. I think that's actually where Matthew Voigt was getting all the time, was under brakes.
Yeah.
It looked like Morsdorf had him for the rest of the lap, but there it is, position. That is 8th place, Matthew Voigt. Here's the battle for the lead.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, we'll go from one battle to another. It's the battle for the lead in the GT class. James Cullen manages to get the gap back down. It's about half a second separating himself and Prado. And there's only a minute 40 left in the race, so depending on where the leader is on the circuit, that's going to be another lap or two maybe if they're lucky, but not a lot of time left for James Cullen to get by.
Remember, the white flag will come out for our leader Mike Kelly in the Daytona prototype, so, oh geez, he is squirrely. But don't say James is not trying here. I mean, he's got a championship to think about as well, but I mean, you got to go for those race victories. That's what it's all about here, and James is not holding anything back.
And it is just a battle between these two guys. Ricardo Machuca, who was able to stick close to these guys earlier in the race, he's dropped 31 seconds off of the leader, Eduardo Prado. So unfortunately, he is no longer a part of the battle for the lead. But there's the white flag that comes out now. So that means Mike Kelly has crossed the timing line for the last time.
That does mean that Eduardo and James have a lap and a half to go. So
yeah, I was just about to ask that. I think they, yeah, you're right. They do have. They finish this lap and then they have one more. So Cullen does have a couple more opportunities for him to get by. And Todd Carver, who has, he's been kind of down around the 7th, 8th place position this entire race. Currently running in 8th place. He's battling with James Mines, and we've seen him get by a few guys. Some guys just let him by because they thought he had better pace, but he hasn't really had an opportunity to get up the field all that much, considering we've seen him have a fairly strong race pace.
It looks like Matthew Boyd has just jumped right on the back of Tim McLeish here, so Tim McLeish has got traffic up ahead of him. So this could play into Matthew Boyd's hand and maybe pick up another spot.
Yep, that's John Kuzland, and I'm not sure. Ooh, when there was contact between those two cars, I'm not sure who that was. Was that
Oh, there he goes.
Not sure exactly who that other Cadillac was, unfortunately, but is this the finish right here?
No, this is last lap for these guys.
Okay.
Mike Kelly will be coming across the line fairly shortly here, but this is the battle we're looking at. Mike Kelly has got this thing wrapped up unless his... Well, I shouldn't say that, because Chuck Chambliss' car exploded in a ball of flame, so... And it's always possible, but I know you have Lauren Bateman for a little reason why we're watching him, and Todd Carver right now. This is not the battle we want to see, folks. We want to see the battle for the lead here. Mike Kelly has actually crossed the line, so the victory and its Daytona prototype goes to Mike Kelly. Matthew Boyd gets a surprise 7th place finish, picking up a couple spots in the last few laps, so good for him there.
Gap is still about a half a second to 0.6 of a second between Eduardo Prado and James Cullen, and it looks like Colin McLean
just by the skin of his teeth holds off Daniel Grolte.
Brian Carey taking 3rd place, or 2nd place rather, in the Daytona prototypes.
I got out of that with no incident, so I stopped the car and got the hell out of there. Oh, Eduardo Prado still has the lead. I wish we could see them right now, but we're watching the cars come across the line. There's Timothy Stoll coming across in 3rd place.
Yep. It's still about half a second separating Eduardo Prado and James Cullen. This is Lauren Bateman. He finishes in 6th position. With James Mines and Todd Carver, they finish 7th and 8th respectively. Here's the battle for the lead in GT, and it's still Eduardo Prado in the lead.
We go.
And that's going to be the victory right there. James Cullen not able to get back around Eduardo Prado, and that is the win for Eduardo Prado in GT. Great battle between both of those guys. Cullen got by early and led the first majority of the first half of the race, but Eduardo Prado able to get by in the pit lane, and he manages to hold on to the lead the rest of the race and win GT.
Alright, checking out the points, we've got Mike Kelly up there with 117 points, but Russell Cow just 4 points behind. Timothy Stoll also vying for that top spot. And then we get a big chunk, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Oh, really, even 10th. Fairly close, although I guess there's a 30-point spread once you look at it there. Colin McLean has 99 points to put him into the first spot, with James Cullen 10 points down, Todd Carver just 13 points down there. And Eduardo Prado through Warren Beaton looks like a battle for 4th, potentially. And then Daniel Geralti through John Kuslin there, battling for the rest of the spots. Alright, well, before we close this race out, you guys have any closing thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of action there, and like I say, the track proved to be very difficult. We saw a lot of incidents, a lot of drivers off the track making contact. Very few of the Daytona prototypes that I saw came away there unscathed. They had some sort of paint damage at least. So, now we're back to the schedule here for the remaining races here. As you can see, up next is a 2-hour enduro at Watkins Glen. Then we go to the Homestead Road Course, Zolder, which is a new track for us there, and then kicking off the season, concluding the season there at Laguna Seca. As you can see, all those races have long since passed, but hopefully we'll get those out to you soon so you can watch the whole season in sequence and maybe have a commemorative special edition DVD available for you. That I just made up. I don't think it's available, but it
you never
just
know.
seemed like, it was a good thing to say. I don't know. Promotion.
Merchandising is definitely what's missing here. Good thought, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, well, thank you all for watching. Thanks to the racers and admins here at ISRA League that make it possible. And, of course, to Brian Carey and Anthony Muniz for being here with me to do this announcing for the races. We will see you again next time. Have a good night.